This year, I retired from running, and one of the major reasons I did that was a terrible run I had last year. You see, last winter, I knew that I should go on a run as I got ready for the track season, so I ran in a straight line out from my house about a mile and a half. Then I turned around and realized that I was turning directly into the cold, bitter wind. It was a terrible realization, especially since I was wearing a hoodie and not even a coat. For the next 10 or 15 minutes, I battled through an extremely unpleasant wind. Headwinds, you could call them. This was one of the most terrible runs I ever had, and it influenced my decision to stop running because of those headwinds. Headwinds are also what's facing a major political party in the United States right now. Headwinds. Headwinds for the Republican Party. And that brings us to today's question: can Republicans keep the House in the 2026 midterms? To answer this question, we will first talk about the background of this midterm election. Second, we'll talk about polls demonstrating what Americans think. And finally, third, we'll talk about positions that either party could take in order to promote their position in the faces of voters. Finally, we'll conclude and talk about how Republicans can overcome these headwinds that they face. To start, let's look at the background. It's not looking good for Republicans. On January 17, 2026, Fox News reported that James Carville, who's an extremely famous Democratic predictor, he predicts elections and knows what he's talking about. He predicts that Democrats will win, quote, dozens, unquote, of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. He says that he believes Democrats also have a very high chance of winning the United States Senate. The Republican National Committee counters this. They say, no, they have a secret weapon: Donald Trump. Well, we'll get back to that when looking at opinion polls. But next, let's talk about a Hill article, an article from The Hill on December 28, 2025. The Hill says that Nancy Pelosi, the former Democrat Speaker of the House, says that the question that Democrats will take the House. When a reporter put to her the question of what will happen if Democrats take the House, she said, no, when Democrats take the House. When Democrats. So she believes with 100% certainty that Democrats will take the House of Representatives. This article continues, noting that the Democrat Party needs to flip only 3 seats in the House of Representatives in order to take a majority. This is an extremely narrow margin, especially when, as Politico reports on January 9, 2026, that there are usually, quote, midterm headwinds, unquote, for any party currently in the majority. This does not spell well for the Republican Party. They're facing headwinds. So, when I was running along that 1.5 mile stretch with terrible headwinds, there was no escape. I had to get back home. But the Republicans might have a way to get back. So, to question that, let's get into the polling of actual support for Republicans. As Real Clear polling reports, both parties have extremely low approval ratings. Starting with the approval rating for the Democrat Party, it says that 35% of Americans, so only about 1/3 of Americans, approve of the Democrat Party, while 58% disapprove. Similarly, it says that the Republican Party has 41% approval, while 54% disapprove. So interestingly, the Republican Party has slightly higher approval and slightly lower disapproval ratings than the Democrat Party right now, but both parties remain extremely low. This poll also says, interestingly, that even though 58% of voters disapprove of Democrats, 48% of voters say they plan on voting for Democrats in the 2026 midterms, while only 43% say they plan on voting for Republicans. So 48%, 43%. That's a 5-point difference between voters planning on voting Republican and Democrat, With that majority, Democrats certainly have a very high chance of taking the House. That's why predictors such as Nancy Pelosi and James Carville are so certain in their prediction. However, there might be time for Republicans to turn this around. That brings us to our third point. What positions could each party take in order to boost their approval rating? Well, the Republican Party, interestingly, has only two positions which actually bind the entire party together. Those two issues are illegal immigration and transgenderism. The Republican Party as a whole believes two things. First, that illegal laws on illegal immigration should be enforced, at least to some extent, or much more than the Biden administration did. And second, that transgenderism, especially for children or on high school athletic teams, should not be allowed. Those two issues are virtually the only issues that actually bind the entire Republican Party together. We see major divisions on whether Republicans support free market principles or government handouts, or whether Republicans support environmental regulations or are against them. Virtually every other issue divides Republicans, but those two hold them together. So if Republicans want to win the election, what they need to do is focus on those two issues and show that they are more reasonable, at least in the minds of Americans, on those issues than Democrats. If Republicans instead focus on other issues that are much more unpopular and even divisive within the Republican Party, that will definitely jeopardize their chances for the 2026 midterms. So, as we've seen by looking at the background, the headwinds that Republicans are facing, by looking at the polling and again seeing that Republicans are behind, and finally seeing the two positions which bind Republicans together, we see that Republicans can in fact overcome the headwinds and retain a majority in the House of Representatives if they focus on the positions that actually unite Americans behind them.